And then the Sunder Nick Fit. Flint, you want to give us a brief rundown of what this deck does?
It does a lot of things. The end.
Yeah.
Um, so Phil is looking to play a lot of mana as quickly as possible, dump his hand with cards like Mana Bond, take advantage of Oath of Scholars to refill his hand, eventually cast Upheaval and kill his opponent with what's his kill card in this?
Black Vice.
Black Vice, right? Yeah,
Yes.
there it is. It's hiding up there at the top with the 3 Black Vice. We've seen it a couple times. I hope that it does well again tonight. I feel like every time we've seen this deck, he's been right on the verge of stabilizing and taking control of the game, and they've been really close.
Okay. So let's take a look at the cards that I anticipate being the key cards of this match. So I highlighted Muscle Sliver, and so this one is kind of interchangeable with the Blade Sliver, but this is like one of the creatures that pumps the attack of the slivers and can just increase the clock and is also a body in itself. So really adds to the pressure for the slivers deck. And then the other card is the Wax Wayne, and this one has either the pump spell, but I'm highlighting more for the destroying the enchantment. I think being able to take out maybe like an Oath of Scholars really could set Phil back if he's kind of setting up, because he might Enlighten Tutor for it and then Oath of Scholars, and if the Slivdeuce deck has the Waxbane right away, then the Sunder Nick deck I think would be really on the back foot in that sequence. So that's why I put Waxbane up there. For the Sunder Nick deck, I would expect Veteran Explorer to be the best card because one, it's just a way to soak up a little bit of damage. I think it's unlikely to trade for any creature, but it also ramps you, and the ramp is very important for the Sunder Nick deck and can really increase the clock. And I don't think there are any basics. Like I said, I don't think there are any basics for the Slivdeuce deck to get. Are there?
I don't see any.
Okay, so it's just a one-sided one in this matchup. So that's something that's very appealing for this card. And then the other card I put up here is Glacial Chasm, and this is a way, and there's only one copy in the deck, but there's also crop rotation to get it. But this is just a great way to kind of buy a few extra turns against the Slivers deck to maybe push you over the edge and to kind of finish your combo kill. Also, you might be able to Sunder and pick up the lands and then replay it later. But one thing to note, there are 3 copies of Wasteland in the Slivers deck, so the Glacial Chasm is not just a free roll once it's in play. You do have to worry about the potential of Wasteland, getting rid of it, and then things would be problematic for the Nick Fit deck. But so those are the things I think to look out to. We'll see how things go in the match. Let's jump over. Flint, if you want to let our players know, they can start, and we will be off. Do you know who's on the play?
I believe Andy is on the play.
Okay. And I believe each player has mulliganed once. So both players will be starting with 6 cards to try and take down this game. Yeah, turn 1 Explorer seems very good. Uh, I mean, Phil's always I think he's just gonna block immediately, and then just having 2 extra lands, 2 rampant growths on a creature, and then a few extra life points is very, very good. So here we see the Plated Sliver, so the modest 1/2 sliver off a Gemstone Mine. And there's a turn 1 Veteran Explorer, so
It's a good blocker.
yep. Well, again, like it's not going to trade with the Plated Sliver because Sliver is a 1/2, but I think you're happy with just getting trading this creature for 2 lands.
Mm-hmm. Should we get the poll out?
Yes, let me update that, and I will bring that up in just a moment.
All right. So, Andy deciding what to do here. Looks like he's going to play out something before combat. The bolt. So, Phil is going to search, obviously. We'll see if Andy elects to at least shuffle his library and fail to find.
That's interesting that he's choosing because, like I said, the creatures wouldn't trade, so that lightning bolt is worth 3 damage. So, and I mean I don't know. I mean, I the blade sliver would have done the same thing. I don't know. It's an interesting choice there.
Yeah.
All right, we'll put up the polls. Chime in and predict who you think is going to win the match. We have the Slip Deuce deck or the Sundernick Fit.
So the old Rith's Grove Gemstone Mine return trick to reset the counters later, and another plated sliver here for Andy.
Okay. So I think at this point, well, I guess the thing is with the Oath of Scholars is I don't know if it would even trigger at this point. I mean, Phil be able to play it on is this his third turn? It would be his second turn, right? It's his second turn.
Second turn.
Yeah.
So he named Waxwing and he does hit.
Okay. So that seems like it's a way that he's looking to clear the path. That doesn't necessarily mean he has the Oath of Scholars right now, but um, the other card in his hand is the Find Sliver. And that's basically just 2/2 sliver. Because I guess the blocking portion is not super relevant in this match.
Not so much.
All right, and we see the spine sliver. So there's one unknown card and then a gemstone mine, or is that gemstone mine in play?
I think the Gemstone Mine is in his hand.
Okay.
It's the one that he bounced with the Rith's Grove.
Okay. Bill has his own gemstone mine. Looks like we're split down the middle, 50-50 between the Slip Deuce and the Nick Fit.
Oh, excellent.
I think I would say the slivers has the edge, but my heart kind of goes out to the Sunder Nick Fit deck. So
Absolutely. It's kind of a slow start from slivers.
yeah, I mean, I think his hand was good. It was a 6 card hand and it had like the wax wane, so uh, it would be much better if it had like a muscle sliver or a blade sliver.
Yep.
But there we see a second vine sliver, so he'll be attacking for 6 a turn. So I mean, if without anything else, this is 2 turns. So Phil's got to do something. It's gonna be kind of quick.
So we're getting to the point where Phil has plenty of mana to work with. And so now it's just, can he get his deck to fire on all cylinders in a way that's going to slow the game down, draw it out, and eventually get him there? What do you think? What are his odds here?
Well, it seems tricky because his draw engine is the Oath of Scholars, and I feel like he's not gonna be able to turn that on. And the interaction that he has doesn't really reset the creatures that well. Like he has Sunder. I mean, I guess he has Upheaval, but um, I think that's probably the card he needs. Is Upheaval. Because even a card like Glacial Chasm here, I mean, if he had it this turn, like Crop Rotation and a Glacial Chasm, I think that would buy him 2 to 3 turns. But if there goes like, if this attack comes through and he doesn't have Glacial Chasm, then it doesn't buy that much time because it'd be 2 and then 4. And
Yep.
so I guess you could use it as a fog. You could, if you had Crop Rotation. I guess even if you didn't have Crop Rotation, so. Well, this represents another turn, if there's nothing else, because this can block one of the creatures, but I guess, I mean, if you're still going with that upheaval line, then this would get 2 more lands, and that would because he has 1, 2, 3, 4, he has 6 mana, and now he has 7, so I guess he had enough for upheaval, but you probably want to have 7 mana when you upheaval, or I guess if he had upheaval, he probably would have cast it there.
I think he's going to do it right here. Nope. It's out. No, never mind.
Yep. Okay.
One left in hand. So, okay. I was going to say there are a couple different cards that Andy could have that could just kill Phil on the
Yeah.
spot.
Well, Bolt, Waxwing.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So just yeah, that extra 2 damage, because he would have blocked the 2/2, and then 4 would have been coming through, and then 2 extra damage from the Waxwing.
Yep.
That's enough to take down the Sunder Nickfit deck.
That'll do it.
All right, let's
And
look.
we're off to game 2.
Yes, let's look at sideboards and see if things change if when they have access to the 15 cards in their sideboard. So Overload, I mean, technically hits Black Vice, but I don't. And I guess there's like Goose Scepter, but I don't think that's the fight you really need to go with. I guess there is Ensnaring Bridge out of the sideboard, and that could be a reason to bring in Overload.
It's his only artifact removal in the deck, I believe.
No, there's a Seal of Cleansing.
Is there one seal?
Yeah, there's a Seal of Cleansing.
Okay, there is one. Yeah, I mean, if that bridge resolves, that could be very problematic for Andy.
Yeah, but I don't think Phil's always going to be able to be Hellbent. I think like there are going to be times he's going to have 1 to 2 cards in his hand, though.
I think you bring in at least one Overload.
Okay. Pyroblast is a reasonable card. It would countering Upheaval is pretty good if you're exchanging 1 mana for 6. There's still the Oath of Scholars, but you do have the Wax Wains that also take care of the Oath of Scholars. Sunder. I'm trying to think of the other blue cards. I don't know. I don't think you need Essence Sliver. That's not what this is about. Torment Script, I don't think does anything. Crystalline Sliver. I don't think there are any targeted effects out of the sideboard. And
No.
Root Sliver does not seem that important. So Overload and Pyroblast, I think, if anything, are the cards coming in. Also, I guess there's bolts. There's also a couple copies of Curse Scroll that could finish off behind an Ensnaring Bridge.
That's true.
Okay, let's look at the sideboard here. Well, Curse Totem unfortunately doesn't do anything. I think it's the 2 Ensnaring Bridges. Those look very appealing. I think those are really the only cards that stand out to me that look like something I would want to bring in.
I think I'd bring in Gigapede as well.
Sure. I think that's fine.
I think I just would to have it as a potential recurring blocker in case you could get to the game to that point.
Yeah, that seems fine.
I don't know if it's good or not, but I think I'd do it.
So do you cut like
no experience with the deck whatsoever?
You cut like Library Laying? Is that maybe the Goose Scepter? I think okay. So which one's better? I guess between those two, because there are somewhat protection against discard spells, but they also have the interaction with Mana Bond and Oath of Scholars.
Yeah,
I think the Scepter is better than the Library Laying. Were you going to say the other thing? Were you going to say it the other way around?
I was going to say that I think the library might be better. But...
Well, because the library puts it on top, right? So that denies you a draw step later. And the Goose Scepter doesn't, right? It just removes it from your hand, then puts it back in later.
I will say I think the Scepter's better in the early game and the library's better in the late game.
Why is library better than the late game? The library makes you skip a draw step. I don't understand. Like, yeah, you're down a card.
With Oath, the idea is later you have Oath, and so if you're going to like discard your hand and draw 3, you can selectively put 1 or 2 cards on the top and then draw them right back, which I think is in getting those cards back, especially if they're important, is huge. Whereas the Scepter is a one of, and so and there is some artifact hate in Phil's deck, or excuse me, in Andy's deck as well. So I think if you're firing on all cylinders and you've got the Oath, then the library is better. But if you don't, then the Scepter's better.
I still kind of disagree, because like if you're having to put 1 or 2 cards back, then you're just drawing less cards, right?
You are, but sometimes you might have the other cards that you need.
Yeah, if you have the cards you need, then you just put them under the Gusto Scepter.
But it's only 1 card at a time, right?
Yeah, but like how many, what combinations of cards do you have? If then just do your thing. then? Like if it's like upheaval and black vice or whatnot, or like what card combination of cards are you holding? I don't know.
It's a good question. All I know is we saw Phil run it out that way in one of the other games, and it seemed pretty legit.
Well, the deck he was playing against had like discard spells though, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe it did.
so yeah, comical flop. I think you came in after the Sundercats had lost to the Slivdeuce deck. Oh, let's put Andy back at 20. No handicaps here. What if we did that for an alternate format where like you would auction certain decks, but then you'd have to like bid at them. So the good decks you'd have to pay more life or start with less cards.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. All right, plated sliver starts us off again. And I guess we would say like not the most impressive thing, but it's not like there's like a 2 power creature to play right away. It's the metallic sliver and the plated sliver. Phil has Treetop Village, which is actually we talked about combat not really coming into play, but Treetop Village is something I overlooked and actually could hold back some slivers. Well, it's probably not getting activated anytime soon, unless well until this Cabal Therapy gets flashbacked and he names Lightning Bolt because there's
Oh wow!
three lightning bolts, a City of Brass, and a Rancor. But it looks like the
Does he?
card that Phil had named was Waxwing again, and he did hit. So all right, we see a Mana Bond getting cast. So this gives Phil the option to use it. It is a May ability.
Right.
So if there are certain cards in his hand that he needs to keep, he doesn't have to use the ability.
All right.
All right, so the Rancor goes on the plated sliver. And that'll be an attack for 3.
Yep.
And I'm just staring at those lightning bolts.
I know, right?
uh, and that kind of makes it tricky because it's like even if you have cards like Gigapede or Treetop Village to maybe stop that creature, well, there's 9 points of burn in his hand for now. Oh, well, there we see Ensnaring Bridge, which is very good in combination with Mana Bond, I guess, because
Oh yeah.
I'm I feel like you might be more willing to discard your hand if you have an Ensnaring Bridge in play.
I would say so. So he's doing this end of Andy's turn.
Yeah, he's using a Lightning Tutor to
Okay.
get it.
And I think Andy is at 18.
Okay. So
Comical flop. Is this plated sliver?
an Ancient Tomb is used to cast the. Oh, so that was that upkeep then? If he has all
Must have been.
4 mana
Yeah.
tapped. Okay, so
Yep.
it's an upkeep on Lightning Tutor.
Yeah. So Andy's definitely going to end a turn bolt.
Sure.
Seems good.
So if Phil has an opportunity, he might want to activate the Treetop Village and flashback the Lightning Bolt because that would save him 3 points of life. He'd lose the Treetop Village, but he'd be able to get the other Lightning Bolt that way.
It leaves him with just an ancient tomb in play. So I guess it kind of depends on what else he's got in his hand.
And I guess he didn't have to discard his hand. He just has 2 cards, and since the plated sliver is a 3/2, he's able to keep those cards.
It just got angrier
Yeah.
and more bitter.
Okay, so there's another Mana Bond. I guess so. If Phil's plan is just to hide behind this ensnaring bridge, I guess that's reasonable. I just worry for because if this okay, he still could activate the treetop village, but I don't think he will because there's only one counter left on the gemstone mine. I think
Yep.
so. He would be losing two lands then.
I mean, it probably wouldn't matter with two Rancors on that sliver too, but if he loses two lands, you know what I mean?
Well, he's
Like,
putting one into play. He's putting a Phyrexian tower.
okay, good, good. You just don't want to get in a situation where you flash it back, lose two lands, and then you're stuck with cards in your hand. I mean, I guess you could always just mana bond them away if you had to, but it just feels like pretty significant card disadvantage.
There is a treetop village on Andy's side of the board, but with the ensnaring bridge, I guess it's probably not too relevant.
Not so much.
So at this point, Phil is looking for. I think Oath of Scholars is probably his best card. Um, so we talked. I guess we didn't talk about the sideboard like Null Brooch. Would you ever bring in Null Brooch against this aggro deck? Because I mean,
Yeah,
it seems like pretty bad in a lot of situations, except for like something like this.
yeah, exactly. If it protects your bridge or whatever, then it's actually good.
Yeah, because basically Andy would need to draw two of them and have them on the same play them on the same turn.
Yeah, it's a pretty narrow scenario, but I mean, if that's like your way to win, and you
And
got to play to it, then
yeah, and there are inline tutors in the deck. So there's only one copy, but yeah, I mean in general, this card seems pretty awkward to draw in most points of the matchup, except for something like this. All right, Phil's tapping 4 mana, so there we have the Oath of Scholars. So is Andy? Does he have any cards in hand though?
I don't know.
Because I feel like he has a bolt still. Um, oh, there's a Waxwing.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
looks like he's got two in hand now.
okay, and one of them is a bolt, right? I mean, it could be worse, I guess. I mean, obviously, Phil would like to keep that around, but the Ensnaring Bridge is the important card. But I guess this is just going to give Andy more time to draw Seal of Cleansing or a card like Overload,
Yep.
or even Curse Scroll.
Yeah, scroll would be good. We got a new sliver.
Yes, the Blade Sliver. Right, so Phil has one card in his hand. Are there any ways that Phil can like kill a plated sliver at the end of Andy's turn and return the Rancors to his hand, so that way he could trigger like an Oath of Scholars if he has it? I don't think there's that many ways, but I guess we should note the Wasteland that came down for Andy,
Yeah.
and that's good against the Glacial Chasm that we talked about.
Yeah, I don't see any instant speed and step bounce spells.
Okay, you're not other than Sunder, but that one obviously wouldn't hit the Rancors.
Exactly.
All right, so Spine Sliver has been added. I think this is probably what we're going to see for a while until this is kind of just it's up to Phil's deck to basically outrace Andy's um drawing his removal. So, oh, is he flash? He's flashing back Cabal Therapy here.
Yep.
Wait, what does he name it? Because the are there three bolts in the graveyard or two?
It looked like there were three.
I was gonna say it looked like three, but oh. Okay, so it's just a gemstone mine. I wonder what card he's naming. Is he just like naming Waxwing again and gonna play an Oath of Scholars? He's using. So I think one thing Phil,
Three so far.
yeah, one thing he could have done is I don't think he tapped the Treetop Village for mana. Wait, there should be an Undiscovered Paradise tapped because he used that to activate the Treetop Village. But so, because that could be relevant just because of cards in hand with the Ensnaring Bridge. All right. So here he's using the Gemstone Mine. He's casting. There's the Oath of Scholars.
Okie dokie.
And then I guess the only problem here is like if Andy's just able to play like his card every turn, Phil won't have. Oh, he draws a Pyroblast. I was gonna say, Phil wouldn't be able to trigger the Oath of Scholars. So I guess that means that the card he has in his hand is something he wants to keep, right?
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, you probably just would you would have discarded it or played it and hoped that Andy drew another land and could only play one land.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So here, the Undiscovered Paradise has come back to hand. That's not the end of the world because I guess if worse comes to worse, Phil could use the Mana Bond on a turn and put those back into play. He would have to discard the rest of his hand. Yeah, this is a sweet collection of Magic cards. We got like every kid's dream of just playing slivers, and then the I guess is Sunder Nick Fit. Sunder Nick Fit can't be the bad guy here. I mean, it's got an ensnaring bridge in play, but is like a bad guy card. But Mana Bond, I don't know. Just being able to play Mana Bond is pretty sweet.
So what happened there? Did he discard the Sunder, or did he get countered by Pyroblast?
No, the Oath of Scholars was targeted with Pyroblast.
So why is there a Sunder in the graveyard? Did he just use Mana Bond?
Yeah, because he put both
Okay.
undiscovered. Well, I guess it's three undiscovered paradises now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Always be juggling that it's a bad guy card, but it's used to protect the good guy. Which is it's kind of funny because I feel like a lot of times you probably would say Slivers is like the good guy, but relative in this match, I think it's hard to say that Sunder Nick fits the bad guy.
Mhm. So what's Phil got to do here? He's got to find a black vice, and then
In an upheaval
an upheaval.
or another oath or I don't know. I'd take a null brooch if he had it. Like I said, I don't know if it'd be a card that I'd be brave enough to bring in, but I certainly would like to draw one right now if I were Phil. There's a Gusta's Scepter.
So he decides to put whatever card he's been holding. Well, I guess that was the Sunder for a while, but he's got a new one. All right, there's a Vice.
Yeah, but the problem is like without a Sunder or an upheaval, how is this black vice getting turned on?
One step at a time.
Oh, metallic slivers. I thought it was a rock lobster for a second. So yeah, that's just getting those out on the board so they're not in his hand. I'll bring up rock lobster for comparison. Yeah, you guys can tell me if I'm crazy or not.
Rock lobster.
I think it might be facing the other way. Come
So many people take that card for granted.
All right, a second black vice. This one's an upgraded version because it's got black border. There's another scepter. So I think right now we're looking for upheaval. How much damage would upheaval deal? That's your math. If Flint goes upheaval, I guess he wouldn't be able to go. Well, he'd be able to go ancient tomb and then black vice, black vice. Oh, there's a curse scroll.
That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Sorry, I have limitations on my. I only have the like actual pre-modern legal sets that I can like select, and then other than that, I can pick like the newest card frame. And since I don't have an unglued on here, I just hit newest. So, the curse
Share of
scroll.
Triumph.
Right,
So we got 28 damage from an upheaval.
is that the math? I guess, and it gets more every turn, right? If because assuming Andy's playing lands or something.
Yep.
Yeah. So upheaval. There's no way for him to like tutor up the upheaval, right? He just has to draw it naturally.
Correct.
So he named City of Brass. Gonna take two.
So we have Phil at 4.
Oh, did I miss?
Yeah, we may have missed a little bit of damage.
Okay.
Perhaps an
Well,
ancient
that
tomb.
that definitely makes him have a lot less time. A lot, like pretty much needs to be. He wouldn't even. It needs to be like now.
Yeah, it's well, he could still win, right? Phil could still win, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
game over, right? Because even
No.
if he plays upheaval, Phil ended turn. No, I
Well,
guess with all the cards in
he
hand, he
just
can't
he
black
just
place.
won. He just won.
Wouldn't be a guarantee.
He would just play one black vice. He wouldn't be able to play two. But yeah, Phil drew, and the Agrarian Find was not the card he needed. And looks like the Slivers deck triumphs over the Sunder Nick Fit. So
The help
let's
of a scroll.
yes, very cursed scroll. Let's jump over to listen to the players.
Yeah, I did. I'm glad I looked at your list because I did see the bridges and I brought in 2 overloads. So I had the 2 overloads. I had a seal of cleansing. That's pretty much what I was waiting on. I kind of forgot that I had curse scrolls outs too. I did side out one bolt, so I didn't have that anymore.
Yeah, I was afraid that the overloads would come in eventually.
Yeah,
But yeah, you answered all the oaths unfortunately, so I
I
wasn't
know.
able
I
to
kept
get
drawing
there.
the timely answers. Yeah. Both the Scholars was one of those cards I looked at when I was a kid that I really was like, oh my god, I got to make this work somehow. So I'm glad somebody finally.
Well, I don't know if I made it work, but I'm trying.
Yeah.
But I guess we will see if we can unmute.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I
this
took out my
is
swords, even though swords is pretty good against the veteran explorer, but
yeah, that's true.
I figured it was the best thing to cut probably.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I don't know. It was sort of an interesting game, I guess. Like it kind of gave me time to try to find
Yeah,
answers, but
if you had
unfortunately.
drawn like a Sunder or an Upheaval or something with the 2 vices in play, that would have been definitely trouble for me.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't draw the scepters in time, and so I had to discard
Mhm.
Sunder that one turn,
Right. Yeah.
which could have been big. But I don't know. I mean, maybe in hindsight, it might have been worth taking the 2 damage, because then your hand would be, I don't know. I feel like we had so many turns, you probably would have emptied out your hand by the time the curse
Yeah.
scroll came back.
I don't know. So yeah, so when you picked up the 2 undiscovereds and you mana bonded, how many cards would you have had otherwise? Was it 3 or 2?
I think it was 3, because I think if it was
Oh,
2, I
okay.
would have been okay, like
Yeah, because I did have 2
passing.
3/3s in play at that point, I think.
Yeah. So it was like always off by like just 1 mana.
Yeah,
But you know, is some interesting decisions to be made.
definitely.
But I'm excited for your last week. Hopefully you finish
Yeah,
out.
likewise. I'm hoping you can take down Robin.
I think Griffin Canyon will get there.
He's got to be
But
stopped. He can't keep getting away with it.
Phil, how
we'll
did you
see.
sideboard? What cards did you bring in and take out?
I didn't bring in that much, though. I was just saying that in hindsight, I wish I brought in the Null Rod, because I would have had just like 1 turn enough to do that, because I had the inline tutor. But I
The
think I
null
brought
null
in
rod or the null brooch?
Null Rod,
Okay, because
because the curse scroll was already down by the time I got the inline tutor in my hand.
sure.
But yeah, I mean, Nullbridge is probably a card that I should bring in more often. I just like am not super familiar with the sideboarding tactics for this deck yet, and so it's still kind of like a work in progress. Like I feel like the pseudo lock kind of came down early, but I just couldn't like close out the game fast enough, or like maintain an Oath of Scholars out for long enough.
Yeah, I mean, I can see like we were talking about null brooch a bit, and like the second game, given the board state you had, it seemed like the best card. But I
That
mean,
would have
the
been pretty much
the
a hard lock.
the
I
games
thought it,
the games easily could have been closer to like what the first game was though, and like it just you if you don't have ensnaring bridge, then null brooch is a pretty miserable card.
Yeah, I think that was basically the thought process. Is like, you know, there's a lot of other cards that could have been okay in here, but I was just like, honestly, I just want to get the inline, or like get ensnaring bridge down, and then just try to make sure that I can use Cabal Therapy to take the Wax and Wanes and the Pyroblast and whatnot. But a few of them snuck by.
yeah. I really thought Phil was going to be on the Griffin Canyon deck, actually. I mean, I know it is tough. It looks kind of tough on paper, but I was kind
Yeah, I
of
don't know.
looking forward to some creature type shenanigans with against the slivers.
I mean, that would have been fun, but I was like looking at the both of your lists that you still had, and like the Wild Zombies list had 2, or I guess it had 3 basics. That I was just like, okay, if I
Yeah.
get matched up against slivers, then at least, you know, the lightning bolts will not deal a ton, and the swords aren't like super great. Sure, they can take out the veteran explorers, but
Mhm.
I was hoping I could get game 1, because Wax and Wayne is really like the card that I was worried about. Um,
Yeah.
and I managed to like get 1 or 2 of them out of your hand, but
Yeah.
yeah, the Rancor and the other slivers managed to get on through.
Hmm.
I think what I need in here, like, so an earlier build of this deck actually had Solitary Confinement in it, which I
Uh-huh.
think is also a good card, and I
Okay.
probably should have kept it in, because really the only like way to control the board, at least game 1, is through Glacial Chasm, and I'm not running like trade routes or something to like kind of reset it. And
Okay.
so like if I at least had Solitary Confinement, that provides like a game 1 like inline 2 target that could
Yeah.
potentially, I don't know,
So
stabilize the game.
that works with the oath, right? But there's no like squee or anything to kind of help keep
Yeah,
it going.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that was really why I like took it out of my earlier, like in my final version, was because I was like, it really only kind of works with oath out, and
Mhm.
theoretically if you have oath out, you're probably in an okay spot,
Mhm.
except in game 1, where I like literally could not empty out my hand fast enough, and you were able to deploy everything to the board.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about playing Wild Zombies, but I thought you were going to be on the Griffin Canyon deck. It was close to a toss up for me, which was better against Griffin Canyon, because the Wild Zombies deck can interact with your hand with the Duress and Cabal
Yeah,
Therapy, and then this deck can interact with the board more. So I think the
Yeah.
Wingspans in this deck probably put it over the top. But yeah, I wasn't even prepared for the the Sunder Nick fit.
Yeah, almost had it. I mean, like
Yeah.
game one, I could have done the turn two or Oath of Scholars, but I decided to be careful and use the therapy first, and I got
Mhm.
the Wax Wayne. But we were talking
Yeah.
about how in game one there's like actually like a lot of just awkward interactions with me taking cards out of your hand, and then the rat or like Black Vice doesn't work as well, and neither
Yeah.
does Oath of Scholars. But
Sure.
I don't know. There's some
Yeah.
interesting decisions.
Yeah. Black Vice can deal a ton of damage though. I mean, once you do get the Sunder, the upheaval. Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't find it in time, but you
Yeah.
know, maybe someone will take some of the ideas of this deck and put in something else because I feel like it has some cool interactions and cool cards. But like
Definitely.
clearly the
Yeah.
clock is just like a little too slow and probably
Yeah,
needs
just looking at
some
it, just
tuning.
look at the list, like all the one ofs and like this super long list of cards. It kind of reminds me of like old Type 1 decks, how they're all, because everything was restricted. So it was all just a super long list of like random restricted cards. So I like that aesthetic quality to it where it's just like
Yeah.
cramming a bunch of stuff in and see what
I'll
happens.
just tell you, it was not super fun to submit as a deck list, though, just because the deck lists were also very long. But at least I wasn't the one that had to format the card images and whatnot. So I think
Yeah.
Mike or Flint probably had to do that. So I feel bad for them.
I think Flint had to do that one, right? I think
That was
so.
me.
Yeah.
That
so,
was me.
yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, really enjoyed playing the games with you, and hopefully I'll catch you in one of the monthlies or some of the other tournaments coming up.
Definitely, yeah. Yep, I'm sure I'll see you around. Yeah, that was fun.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks,
Cool.
guys.
Thank you.
All right,
Cool.
thank you.
All right, enjoy the next round. See ya.
All right, see ya.
All right, so let's take a quick look at our schedule for our upcoming match. So we're going to be moving on to Anthony Harrison against Bryan Manolakos for our second match. Let's go over to our get to know the players. We'll talk about Andy and Phil a bit. But in the meanwhile, Seto Kalba, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. We'll talk about Andy. So we asked them, how did you pick your three decks? So he said, wanted a balance of colors, mix of different strategies, tried to find fresh ideas that had a chance to compete, and wanted to get out of my comfort zone. So kind of sounds like a similar approach that Aaron took, just was kind of like getting a well-balanced mix of different deck colors and strategies. And so he was playing the Pirates, the Slib Deuce, and then the Wild Zombies. So they all they interact in a different way. One's like a pure aggressive deck with the Slib Deuce. The Pirates one has kind of like a board lock prison-y style thing with the Pirates. And then the Wild Zombies is like that grindy mid-range deck. So you only get to keep one of your Magic cards. He would choose to keep his Library of Alexandria. So he said both value and nostalgia. So that's a
Contrary to the historical context, he wouldn't let that one burn.
yeah, that one let that one burn. Yeah. So yep. So pretty fit in there. So we chose Pirates or Ninjas, and I was going to be very upset if he chose Ninjas on this one because given that Andy had picked Pirates as the deck to bring to the Premodern Showdown Series, I'm glad that he settled on Pirates. So he said his favorite video game is Street Fighter. I know my experience with Street Fighter, it comes with the Super NES Mini when they released that a couple years ago. But a couple weeks ago, my younger daughter likes to play like that game every now and then because it's pretty easier for her just to mash buttons. And I was playing her for a bit, and then my older daughter came down. So my younger one's 5 and my older one's 10. And then I think so you can set like a handicap in terms of like having one player dealing more or less damage. And so I told my older daughter, well, give it so you're handicapped so it's harder for you to win. Well, she had it set up, but then like right before she clicked it, she accidentally like pushed like right on the control pad and like upped her damage. So she had like full damage. So she was doing more damage than the younger sister. And then the younger sister still beat her. So that was of karma there. So
So which Street Fighter is your favorite?
I've only really played like the Street Fighter Turbo or like the original or the I. Is it Street Fighter 2 or Street Fighter? I don't.
So Street Fighter 2 is the original, but Street Fighter 2 Turbo is the best. That might be the one that's on the SNES
Well,
Mini.
you can choose like both. It gives you an option. You can pick like Turbo or the other ones. I usually don't pick Turbo because I don't. I usually pick the original one. I don't know. So
Fair enough. Fair
that
enough.
that game is not forgiving at all. Like it's like the move combos are super tough. Like you have to be really like well timed on like blocking some of the things. Like I know I'll just play the computer and I'll just get owned. But the other
Computer
thing,
can be pretty cruel.
so after my wife came down, I said you got to play this for a bit, and I told her to pick. I don't remember the character's name. It's like the Indian guy who's like got really stretchy arms and legs. Also, and so I'm like, Megan, you got to pick this guy. He's got like super long range. And then we were just laughing because she's just like halfway across the screen, and just like the arms are like stretching, and she's just push, push, and punching my daughter. That was funny. So yeah,
The button mash.
yes. Andy says he can hold his breath for 60 seconds. I think that's tied for the longest from what our contestants have said. So
Yep.
Okay, for Phil, he only gets to keep one magic card. What would he keep? He says crop rotation, which is in two of his decks. It's not in the Esper Zombie still.
Correct.
Then both the Sunder Nick Fit and in the Griffin Canyon. So he says he loves it in both Legacy and Premodern. So you will see Phil casting crop rotation a bunch. So hopefully that's not his most valuable card. So I guess maybe if you have some really fancy foil for in crop rotation, maybe it could be. But
I actually opened a foil crop rotation in Urza's Legacy back in the day, and I still have it.
sweet.
I remember looking like at the prices maybe a year or two ago and being like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this is worth so much money."
Yeah, is it rumor or is it actually true that like the foil ratios of like the Urza sets are like pretty rare?
I've heard that, but I've never read anything.
Okay.
I'm sure we have someone in chat who can substantiate it.
Okay. Phil says his favorite video game is Super Smash Bros. Melee. So that's probably the one I've like played the least. I just never played the GameCube that much. I played a good amount on the 64. I played a good amount of Brawl. That was the one that was for the Wii?
The Wii, yeah.
And then the Switch one is it just Ultimate? Is that what it's called? So I like
have it. I don't know.
Yeah, I like those. Who's your favorite Smash Bros character?
So Super Smash Bros. Melee is my all-time favorite.
Okay.
We played a ton of the first two, and then we've been playing the one on the Switch now. But from Melee, so in the original Kirby was my character, and then in Melee, I played as Samus and Luigi. Those were my two characters.
Okay. Yeah, from the original one, I liked Samus and Kirby, and then I didn't play that much Melee, as I said. And then in Brawl, I loved Pit. Like I don't think he was good, but I just enjoyed playing Pit that much. I just had so much trouble like knocking anyone off the stage with Pit, but he was very fun. I also like Link a lot, but he's like real bad because he cannot jump. Like he cannot recover for crap. And so it's like it's real easy to get knocked off. But I like the smash moves with Link. So love that game. Super Smash Bros. Is great. So
super fun.
How long can you hold your breath underwater? 3 seconds. I think did Robin say 2 or did he also
Robin did say 2?
Okay, so he's got Robin beat there. So all right. So I guess not an aquatic person, but
next week they're gonna hold their breaths to see who goes first.
Yes. Yeah. Robin says Phil trying to outdo me but failing. Yeah, that's an interesting competition you have there, but yeah. Okay, so we will take a brief intermission. I guess I'll take this moment to remind everyone, if you haven't already, sign up for the Spring Fling. The deadline is tomorrow at noon Eastern. So sign up now. Glenn, have you signed up?
I have the window open right now in another browser to do so. I remember to do it after we finish tonight.
Okay. All right. So Flint's going to do it, so you guys should too if you haven't already. Because, yeah, Because
Pretty
basically
fun.
the problem with it is the formatting is like I'm not gonna be able to add people on like after I set the pairings. It's not like I can just add people into a pod. It's not set up that way. So make sure you register. All right, let's take a break. We will come back. We will have our match between Anthony and Bryan, and we will close out the night with what I'm hoping is a very exciting match. So sit tight, everyone. We will see you soon. Okay, everyone, thanks for waiting. We are back from our break. We have our players set up. So we are going to talk about the match between Anthony and Bryan. Let's go over to our ban screen. The 3 decks that Anthony brought are Tortured Madness, Blue White Wizards, and Dig Site. He is not allowed to play Tortured Madness because Bryan banned it tonight. Bryan has Mind Slicer, The Birds, and Solfatara Springs, and Anthony has chosen to ban the Solfatara Springs deck. So Anthony has picked Dig Site, and Bryan Manolakos is playing Mind Slicer. So I'm very excited to see how this match plays out. So let's move over, get a quick list of these decks. I think we've only seen each of these decks in action once in these series, so it'll be good to see both of these decks on camera again. And what this Dig Site deck is looking to do is basically get Future Sight in play, and then play a bunch of cards, and get to the point where it has Soldevi Digger and no cards in its library, and then it can cast Turnabout to untap to get like plus mana, and then put it from the graveyard on the bottom of its library, which would be empty, and then be able to get infinite mana and then mill them out with Stroke of Genius. The way it stays alive are cards like Turnabout can be a way to tap creatures, Exhaustion can buy you a turn, and then Time Warp is a way to take an extra turn. And all of these in combination with Future Sight can be really powerful because Future Sight allows you to play the top card of your library, and you'd be able to go through, play a bunch of instants, or get an extra land drop and really churn through your deck that way. It's a really cool deck, but might take a little bit of setup to get going, but can be really powerful if it gets to that mid to late game. All right, the Mind Slicer deck. Flint, do you want to brief us on what this does?
Sure. So this is looks like a pretty fun deck to play. It's got a lot of disruption with Duress, Cabal Therapy, and Bombless Pit. And what Bryan's trying to do is take advantage of Mind Slicer, the sooner the better, to make everyone discard their hand so he can discard cards like Basking Rootwalla or Call of the Herd and put those into play eventually. And he has other cards to finish the opponent off, such as the Rack, Curse Scroll, and Mishra's Factory that he doesn't necessarily need to have in his hand. So basically looking to disrupt, empty the opponent's hand, and then grind out the game from there.
Okay, I'll move over. We'll talk about what we anticipate to be the key cards of this matchup. So for the Dig Site deck, I anticipate Future Sight being the most important card. Once this is in play, I think Anthony could be in pretty decent shape. There's not a way for Bryan to get rid of it, and at least not in the main. And it's going to provide a lot of card advantage once that Future Sight's in play. And then Fact or Fiction kind of the same aspect of it can just maybe get you out of a situation. There are only 3 copies of Fact or Fiction, but just being able to dig 5 cards deep to get 1 or 2 key cards, it might be really important. It might get him back in a game that he might have his hand discarded. And then going over to the Mind Slicer deck, I picked Cabal Therapy. I guess you could have picked Duress here. There are ways to interact with cards like Future Sight that he can't take care of once they're in play, but then also just disrupting your opponent, and also it's a way to like get your opponent under the rack number to deal damage. And then kind of in a similar vein, I put Bottomless Pit. It's just a recurring source of discard, and if the Future Sight isn't already in play, then discarding a random card could be a little bit tricky for Anthony because some of the cards are kind of time based. Like you might want to wait to cast a Time Warp over a certain spot, or Exhaustion, or certain things. So the Bottomless Pit might be in a spot where it makes things awkward. So let's jump over to our match and see how things are going to play out between these two players. We have Anthony on the left with the dig site deck, and then Bryan on the right with the Mind Slicer. And Bryan is on the play, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So Bryan's obviously the aggressor in this match, so I think he's very happy to be on the play. And I didn't see them mulligan at all, so I think they're starting with 7 cards. I think the times we saw the Mind Slicer deck in action, we never actually saw the namesake card come down, did we?
No, I don't think so.
So I'll be happy if we get to see the 4/3 in play. All right, so not sure if they're communicating with us, but it looks like we're ready to start. A Llanowar Wastes will start things off with a Duress. So we get to see Anthony's hand. He has Sleight of Hand, Counterspell, Relearn, and Soldevi Digger. What card do you think you're taking there? This is kind of. I mean, I think it might matter a lot what's in Bryan's hand, but you could make arguments. I think for most of these cards, I don't think I would take a Relearn, but
Yeah, I think if he's got a big turn 2 play, he's going to say Counterspell here, but otherwise, I think it's
well,
probably
it would be Bryan's turn 3 because turn 2 Bryan's turn 2. He won't have the counter magic up. He'll just have 1 island or fairy. He won't have
that's true.
So, but I mean, the same goes for like important 3-drop like Bottomless Pit or something. But then you could also make the argument of like trying to get the Soldevi Digger, and then because I think there's only are there 2 or 3 copies of that?
There are. Let me pull it up.
Because if both of those are gone,
2.
is it like I guess like it's kind of the thought of like, yeah, you could take one, but then if you don't get the other one, it pretty much didn't do anything. But if you do get to take both, then I think you pretty much win. I guess it's theoretically possible. You could probably do it, but it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I think what does he have to do? He basically has to save his turnabouts, get a bunch of land out, and then he's got to use the turnabouts to add a lot of mana and then use Stroke of Genius.
Well, we see a Cabal Therapy was the follow-up. So Bryan goes for the card advantage play and takes 2 copies of the Sleight of Hand. So
We don't know what the 4th card is.
no. Oh, I guess we should, right? It would reveal. I guess you should message him. I don't know if Anthony remembers which one he drew this turn, but Anthony does play the Soldevi Digger right now, so probably to get it out of range of discard spells. And then the rack is added for Bryan. So this is a source of damage. So there were 3 cards in hand. So Anthony takes. Bryan's at 17 from his lands, and then I can't see Anthony's life total. Can you see it?
I cannot.
Okay. Do you want to message Bryan to have him move the red die down a little bit? It's like just on screen on my uncropped version, but the Mano's name is over it, so I can't read any of the text. All right, so we have a Dark Ritual into the Mind Slicer. So the the 4/3, and he's gonna use it to sacrifice just to get rid of the hand. So bottomless pit goes to the graveyard, and then I didn't see the other cards, but it was one of them was an island or a snow
Yeah, I
covered
didn't see it
island.
either.
So it take 3 damage from this rack for sure. I think. Well, he's at least taken 1 from a basking root. Well, I think he might have taken 1 damage turn before. But yeah, now Anthony's kind of in a tough spot because it's kind of like if he keeps cards in his hand, he's not developing the board. Like if he draws like a land or something, it's awkward if he doesn't play it because he's not developing his mana. But if he is playing lands, then then he's gonna take more damage from the rack.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I think the game was over a couple turns ago when Push-Up Lizard hit the
Yeah.
battlefield.
That was what sealed the doom. And this is a good follow up as Curse Scroll with right after you discard your hand is a nice draw. So
Seems legit.
yeah, I'm just gonna be guessing on Anthony's life total. So he uses a relearn on a sleight of hand, and then he has to pass the turn because he only has 3 mana. So
There's the duress.
okay, there's a future sight that'll take future sight. Oh, I guess he takes takes sleight of hand. Basking Rootwalla will get in there for 1.
1. Comical Flob, I am not going to do push-ups on camera. but I appreciate the encouragement. I'll do some later. he may demand it. I'll do them later. Got to work on my COVID pod.
All right, I already did my push-ups today, so
Nice.
I met my push-up lizard quota. So
He's a stern supervisor.
yes.
No slacking.
All right, Wasteland is taking out a Fairy Conclave. I think it's funny that we've talked multiple times about Anthony's mana base and how I think that is his 1 non-basic in his deck, and it gets Wastelanded. Like the rest is just all islands. So yeah.
Yeah, 22 islands and 1 conclave.
Yeah, I think I see a 3. He might be like at 4. I could have his life total way wrong, but Anthony is definitely under the gun here.
Yeah.
All right. Anthony's in a spot where he can't win, so he will
scoop him.
Yeah, he'll scoop him up. Oh, I forgot to send up a poll for who's gonna win, but
all right, biased poll time.
Yep, we'll do it after we come back. Okay, so player 2 has won a game. Let's go over to our decks. We'll talk about sideboarding, see if things can improve for the dig site deck. I guess the biggest issue is just it's not so much like pressure, it's just the discard. And looking at the sideboard, I mean, nothing helps with that. I mean, you could maybe argue bringing in something like propaganda, but you're fine with like a Mind Slicer paying 2 to attack with that every time. I mean, it maybe would hold off like a Basking Rootwalla, but like a Call of the Herd or whatnot, I just don't feel like it's that impactful of holding off that size of a creature.
Does it slow Bryan down at all if he gets 1 in play? Like just, I mean, we didn't see a lot of mana on Bryan's side this match, but if he can't scroll you and attack you, is that helpful, or is that just a situation that if you get to that point, you're probably losing anyway?
Yeah, I don't know. And then it's kind of like, what card are you bringing it in over?
Sure.
Because it's like none of the cards that you take out like seem bad. All of them kind of like seem they either like kind of cards that grease the wheels that the ops and the sleight of hands. I mean everything just seems to work pretty well together. That I don't doesn't seem like there's any card that doesn't pull its weight that much.
Gotcha.
All right.
All right.
Sideboard for Mind Slicer. I see
Ooh.
Tormod's Crypt is something that can be brought in. I think
Yep.
that's a card that Anthony's talked about being annoying. Though, like if you just need 4 mana though, right? Or how much is an activation of Soul Devi Digger? Is it 2 or 3 to activate?
I think it's 2. It's been a while since I played with that card.
And so you just need another activation. I guess it's it would still you just need a second activation. But I guess if you don't have the card you need on the actual bottom, then it's pretty hard to get what you want. It's 2 mana. Put the top card of your graveyard on the bottom of your library. Okay.
Yep.
Ray
Revelation seems good.
Yeah, that one seems real good. You're bringing a treetop village.
Yeah, maybe you're just bringing a village and a root wallet just for more pressure.
I think the treetop village also might be like if you bring in the green cards, which you're bringing in to naturalize an array of revelation. So I guess those are cards. Are there cards that are not appealing?
Diabolic Edict.
Why is that one not good?
You can't see us right now, but I just I'm looking at the list and I had to turn to Mike like, wait a minute, is he messing with me? Okay.
Anthony drew is his fairy conclave the last game.
That's true. It would snag a conclave.
Yeah, that one. This seems like an easy swap. Just 3 for 3. I guess there's 3 edicts, and we talked about potentially 4 cards. Is there another card that maybe I don't know? Maybe the other lizard comes in, and so that's 5 cards coming in. I don't know. I guess that's not bringing in Tormod's Crypt either, so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, obviously the edicts are the worst card, but then beyond that is a little trickier. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely wants to naturalize, and then probably the Ray as well. It's just so good with Bottomless Pit and Mind Slicer, and he'll still have an answer.
Yeah, I like naturalize and Brave Revelation before the Tormod's Crypt. So I guess the one nice thing is like Tormod's Crypt can come down right away, but Brave Revelation you're fine if you discard that. That has flashback for green. It's easier to cast from the graveyard. Naturalizes might be a little awkward if you're like bringing those in and they don't have a target and you want to cast a Bottomless Pit, and you might discard it later. Then it's a little bit weird, but yeah, I don't know. All those seem fine. Okay, let's hold out. I guess I think they'll probably be starting soon. I was to say maybe we could talk about their little get to know the player cards, but I think we're going to be starting soon. So Anthony's on the play. Given that his hand's face down, I'm guessing he's keeping his hand.
Looks like it.
All right, Flint, you got to be really on top of Anthony's life total this game.
All right. That's my one job. Don't screw this up. Don't screw this up. Don't screw this up. Don't screw this up.
All right. I'm bringing up a card for you, right? Ready, Flint?
Huh?
You see it?
I can't. Hold on. Let me pull up the stream. Nice.
All right. So there's your bingo card of the night. All right, we have the dice down there. All right. That makes it a little easier. There. Your job has been assisted. So, Snow-Covered Island is the play for Anthony, and then he'll pass the turn.
All right.
So we'll be see a bunch of disruption from Bryan right away, duresses and Cabal therapies. If you lead with a blind Cabal therapy, what are you naming first?
With a blind Cabal therapy.
Yep.
If I want to land a turn 2 play, then I probably name Counterspell. If I don't care as much, then I probably name me look at Anthony's list. Maybe like there's only 3-factor fiction, but that's just such a good card.
Mumblesaurus Rex, thank you for the follow. Welcome.
Probably
welcome.
factor fiction.
Yeah, that one seems good too. Yeah, I would say I think the card you want to hit the most is Future Sight, but like it costing 5, it's pretty easy to leave in the graveyard and then flash it back later if they do have that.
Yeah.
All right, so more racks than first scroll. Bunch of 1-mana artifacts that currently don't do anything.
So here comes the discard. No. Oh yes. Okay.
No. Oh yes. Oh no.
Oh yes. No. Ah. Ooh. What's his life total? Oh God. It's 20. Welcome to the Premodern Showdown Series, where everything is under control.
By everything, we mean nothing. All right. So you think factor fiction here?
Yeah, I think that's what I would name.
Yeah, that seems fair. This just feels like an exhaustion type of hand. He's got exhaustion. That's my soul read. Oh no, I was wrong. Factor fiction was there. It looks like he named Counterspell. An attack from a Mistress Factory. Okay.
Beats for 2.
So the cards we have for the Fairy Conclave, an Island, a Soul Devi Digger, a Relearn, and Factor Fiction. So I guess this is a sequence where it's all right. Mind Slicer. So then Anthony doesn't have the counterspell, but he can Factor Fiction. Oh never mind. I forgot about the
not really. Yeah. What do you name?
The Cabal Therapy should be exiled.
Yes.
But yeah. Yeah, Bryan wasted no time to sacrifice that Mind Slicer. 'Cause, I mean, you could make an argument to try and attack with it, but I guess probably not. You have 2 racks in play. You're fine if getting rid of your hand. So, ooh,
That's brutal. That's just so brutal.
That is brutal. So the rack is going to deal 6 damage. All is well. Remain calm.
It's the meme with the dog in the fire. It's fine.
We're so close. Like if that Future Sight just like fell off the graveyard and maybe came into play, then I think everything will be okay.
Listen, we don't know how it got there, but it's there. And this is the world we're living in now.
Bryan's ready to slice up some more mines. This is just another clock. Or adding to the clock, I guess. So 4 damage. There is not much time. Yeah, you just attack for 6.
The last card in his hand, it looked like there was a ritual.
Yeah.
So he can't scroll right now, but
well, yeah, Anthony's gonna take 2 from the rack.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So a brutal sequence from the Mind Slicer deck just punishes the Dig Site deck. I definitely thought that was something that could happen, but I thought there were, because I think if Anthony has another turn, then things might have been different. But let's listen to them.
Yeah.
I don't mean to suggest that getting a Future Sight down it makes it an automatic win.
Right.
I just mean that I think that this deck has a better game against this than say Solfatara Springs.
Right. Because you have no ways. You don't even have blasts, right? So you literally have 3 counter spells to slow it down, and that's it.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, exhaustions can
right
something of a time walk sometimes. But I don't know. I just kind of committed. I wanted to play Dig Site. I wanted to see if this deck could be able to do its thing at least one more time. and Solfatara Springs is literally unwinnable. So I banned that one, thinking that, well, if I could just get a Future Sight down, and I knew you were going to play Mind Slicer.
Yeah,
so
yeah, of course.
Just get a Future Sight down. Well, at least then I'd be able to, churn through the deck and not worry about actual factual discard all that much.
Yeah,
But,
this was there weren't a lot of good options for you. If Solfatara is a 9.5 against you, this is probably like an 8.5.
Yeah.
So this is the way that for once the cards didn't, or the matchups didn't line up against me. This must be what my opponents usually feel like. Geez, doesn't matter what I do.
Well, getting mind twisted pretty early is pretty rough. I mean, especially with a deck that needs to, accumulate kind of a critical mass of mana and cards.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Wizards would have been a better matchup, but that's kind of by virtue of the fact that it's a better deck.
Yeah.
I think
that would have been more interesting. I'd like to think I'm slightly favored there, but not by a lot. The 3 Engineered Plagues do the Lord's work. Obviously, you have the 4 Shared Triumphs, but then I have this same package as well. So there would have been a lot of play to that matchup, I think.
Yeah.
As opposed to what just happened, where you didn't really do anything, and I just duressed you a couple of times, and that was that.
Yeah, as I've said before, I think Dig Sight's it's just a little misbuilt. Like it needs either I have a blue-white version with like Worm's Chance and Swords and Wraths and like way more interaction, and it's a much better deck. But I didn't come up with that version until after the deadline to submit deck lists, so it didn't do me any good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It needs like Howling Minds to kind of be like a modern turns deck or something. I don't know. It is fun to just get a Future Sight down and just churn through your deck, but obviously
Future Sight is one of my absolute favorite cards. I would love to find a way to get it to work.
Yeah, I think maybe I've had some success with it in like a Turbo Land shell. So so obviously the acceleration that you get from Exploration and Summer's Bloom gets it down quickly. But yeah, it's pretty rough that this deck doesn't really start to do much of anything until like turn 3 or 4.
And a lot of times you have to tap out on turn 4 or 3, and then if you leave open, if you just let me Mind Slicer to my heart's content, it's likely not going to go great for you. So like you said, I agree. Solfatara is somehow probably worse than this matchup, but this matchup is pretty rough.
I think Solfatara is literally unwinnable. Like I don't see how Dig Sight wins.
So here I thought you were being nice to me by letting me play Mind Slicer, but really you're being mean because you didn't want to let me have Solfatara's Day in the Sun.
It was a bit of both. I mean, there was a lot of charity. Like the fact that I had like committed to playing a bad deck to begin with.
And I guess that's true, right? Okay, here's the last question. What if I had randomly banned this deck?
But if you banned Dig Sight?
Yeah.
Well, then I would have played Tortured Madness.
Yeah,
but mostly by virtue of nobody letting me play Tortured. It'd be less about like, oh, let me spike a win with my only good deck, and more about actually getting to show off this brew, a brew that I'm actually pretty proud of. That didn't really get to do its thing in the one match that I played with it. It was like it had enough disruption against Griffin Canyon that the creatures it was able to put into play got the job done. But like the Tortured Existence is really good, like especially with Basking Root Wall. Like you just chain just kind of endless Root Wall is in play and get stuff back to your heart's content. It's pretty sweet, but it is the best deck of the 3 that I cobbled together. So I'm not too surprised that it's gotten the ban pretty much every week.
Yeah, that's one thing I wish I could go back and do is somehow play 3, regardless of how the matchups go, but 3 decks on sort of an more even power level, just to make people think a little bit more about their bannings, because it feels like you're getting your Tortured Madness banned every time, and I'm getting this banned every time.
Well, at least we got to see it do its thing. I knew it'd be a rough matchup, but I guess I overestimated for how long I would have a hand in the matchup.
Yeah, if all goes according to plan, I mean, by turn 4 at the latest, a lot of times it can really be turn 2 if I therapy you and then Ritual Mind Slicer. The problem is I might not even be ahead, right? We might just both have 2 lands in play. And then we're playing off the top, which is admittedly much, much better for me, of course, but at least you have outs.
No, I think I don't know if I like overlooked the dark rituals or something, but yeah, like I said, I thought I would have more time to assemble resources and try and get something together against it. But it was certainly impressive.
Yeah, that was literally like Magic 101. Cast rack,
Yeah.
therapy away your only out, mind slicer you. Okay, that's that.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I have a question, Mano. When you
Oh shit, are they trying to talk? They probably aren't.
They might be.
Yeah.
You're
Hello.
unmuted.
Hello. Mike has a question for Mano.
Yeah, it's very, very pressing. So
Super pressing.
They have a question for you.
Okay, I missed it. Sorry, I just unmuted you. What's your question?
So when you flashed back Cabal Therapy, sacrificing Mind Slicer, what card did you name?
I was thinking long and hard about it. I was going between Black Lotus. I ended on Black Lotus.
Okay.
But I got to think of a better card to name in those situations because there's got to be something more out there. You know, I should have named like Ace of Spades or whatever.
So one card that it's I don't know if it's like an insult or if it just has like some contextual history, but like Abandon Hope used to be like the first card that would come up, but it also like has the context of like it sounds like you're like rubbing salt in the wound when you say like Abandon Hope.
Oh, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
That's actually right up my alley. So.
But I think then there was like a Time Spiral card that like it's like a tome or something that taps to put like a 1/1 token in play. It's got like a weird name that would show up. I think
History of the Sarpadian.
Yeah, something like that. Like
the 7th or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for some reason that would show up above like the Moto list. That one ended up being the top card. But I think for the longest time, like Abandon Hope, I think was in Tempest. But yeah, Abandon Hope, I think is a good name.
Is figuring out what my Cabal Therapy names are.
Yeah,
that was embarrassing. Black Lotus is so boring.
But yeah, that turn, like if you don't have Mind Slicer there, then I think Anthony has a pretty decent shot in that game. Like he's factor fictioning, and I don't know if you had a Future Sight right there, but like
I'm pretty sure I had a Future Sight in hand. So it would have been the plan would have been a turn, end of turn factor fiction into a turn 5 Future Sight, and then hope to outrace the racks. But yeah, just kind of a turn too slow.
Yeah.
Or 2. I don't know.
Yeah, and the naming the blind Cabal Therapy was interesting. We were talking about what you would name. I think we thought Factor Fiction probably be the card that, but Counterspell's a good name too.
I would, right? But in that situation, I know I'm going to play Mind Slicer and flash it back next turn. I don't care if he has Factor Fiction. I literally only care about Counterspell. So that actually was pretty easy.
All right, that's fair.
I had to look through his deck list just to make sure there was no weird other counterspell that I was missing, and I had to look up like what his sideboard cards did, and who knows what Evacuation even does. Maybe that's a counterspell. Nobody knows. But it felt like counterspell was pretty easy, even though he only has 3 of them. Like who cares? Factor Fiction to your heart's content.
Yeah,
that's the awkward thing about the deck. Previous versions had more counterspells, but the more interaction you put in the deck, the less able you are to chain through your deck once you have a Future Sight in play, because you just you're playing land. You already can just hit a glut of lands and it stops you in your track. It's like, okay, well, land, draw for turn, land. Okay, well, let me play that land. Another land on top. Okay, well, I guess I'm done. So the more counterspells you have in the deck, the more that problem gets compounded. It's not as bad because at least you have a counterspell at the ready on top that they can't do anything, and so they can play their turn. But when you're wanting to just chain through the deck, draw a bunch of cards, and take a bunch of turns, it's like you need interaction to stay alive and to be able to do your thing. But then the more interaction you have, the less able you are to do your thing once you're doing it. So that's why I think going blue-white is much better, because you have Orin's Chance, which can serve as pseudo time walks, just like Exhaustion does. But it's even if you're going off, you can just pay a white to effectively draw a card. You just play a chant, and then you see a new card.
Yeah.
So yeah, that deck's way better. But like I said, I didn't come up with it until like I don't know, a week or so after the
A lot of us had a lot of changes to our deck list, but these guys were sticklers. They made us. It's blame them because I'm pretty sure there's a good chance I'm 6-0 if I have 3 to 4 pyroclasms in my sideboard of Solfatara. So just saying, there's a few changes I would have made. That's all.
I found the solution, Anthony. You can put Milliken in your deck. It solves all your problems.
Wow.
It's a 2-mana 0/1. It taps to add a colorless, but it also puts the top card of your library in the graveyard. So it ramps you, gets the future sight a little quicker, but then also if you have that land on top, you can just mill it away.
I mean, an obvious thing is just fetch lands. But,
yeah.
Like when the very first pre-modern brew that I came up with, I learned about the format and I think I told this story on stream. I learned about the format and I was like, I want to. Future Sight's one of my favorite cards, and it doesn't have a home in any format. It could have a home here. Let me put a Future Sight deck together, and it was basically this, but it had Sapphire Medallions and Merchant Scrolls and whatnot. And I started with like 6 or 8 fetch lands, but I kept having these awkward moments of where I'd be tapped down low and only have like an island and a fetch land, and there'd be like an Impulse or a Merchant Scroll on top, and I couldn't cast it because I'd have to crack the fetch to have the mana, but then that would shuffle the deck. And so it just seemed to me that like, I don't know, maybe less than half the time, so not quite a 50-50 split, but it was like sometimes the fetches were beneficial, but then sometimes they were not good because you'd have to crack them at inopportune times and shuffle away a card that you wanted. But it's probably correct to have at least some number of fetches in, just to be able to have greater control over the top of your deck. There should probably be like at least 2 scroll racks in, just because like the interaction with Future Sight to draw a bunch of cards, put cards you can cast on top and then cast them. So like there's a ton of different things that you could put in this deck that would make it better. I don't know if it would make it good, but it could certainly be improved with a couple of different cards.
I'm not kidding. I don't hate Milliken at all.
I never like having like if you have like a creatureless deck, just having like one creature.
Right. That's the only problem. It turns out
I think Mindstone is the answer there. It gives you the ramp and the ability, and it in a pinch it lets you.
It gives you a 1-turn Milliken.
Yeah.
But it doesn't turn on all their creature removal. Like that would be another thing. That could be like you could play Ancient Tombs and some number of mana rocks. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of different. All of my brewing power is focused on Doomsday at the moment, so I don't know how.
You could always put Chromatic Spheres in as well because it's equal on mana and it'll get the top card off.
And it's a mana ability.
Not equal on mana, you lose a mana.
Well, once it's in play.
Yeah, once it's in play.
Yeah.
But it's an early play.
Yeah.
It would have been good here. You load the board with spheres and whatnot, and then I Mind Slicer, and then you just rip 3 cards. That would have been pretty good. Yeah.
So I should really be playing like eggs, like Darkwater Egg and whatever.
You should have been factoring in the Mind Slicer metagame into your deck building for sure.
Everyone will now. It'll be first turn Lackey, turn 2 Metalworker, and turn 3 Mind Slicer.
That is quite a sequence of cards.
That would be an interesting deck list. Yes.
Certainly not all in the same deck, but maybe.
All right. Well, thanks for letting me play this. I appreciate it. Sorry I banned your really good deck.
That'd be a wild swing in the other direction.
Like, I don't know if I was just being too optimistic, but I was thinking that the matchup was going to be a little closer.
You always think the matchups are going to be close.
that was my thought.
To keep viewers. Come on, be honest about it.
Yeah. You probably caught. I probably wasn't muted, but like my thought process was that I wanted to play Dig Site, and I knew that Mind Slicer would be not great, but Solfatara Springs would just be unwinnable. Like it's a deck that wants to get 13 lands into play, so you can't let the deck that stops you playing lands go through. But I knew that the discard would be rough, but I was just like, if I can just get lands in play and top deck a Future Sight, well, then I'm in it. And then then I've got a shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just really, overestimated how long I would have to cobble resources together before just losing the hand. Like it's pretty brutal. Just getting totally mind twisted so early. And you know, it's like the clock of the racks and whatnot is is super impressive.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, I've played this in 2 monthlies and barely missed. I went 4-2 last month with a similar version. I went X-2 like, I don't know, a year ago with it. It's close. It's obviously not a tier 1 deck, but it's somewhere in the bottom of tier 2. It's like it's a reasonable deck one could play. It's the only reasonable one of my 3, I think.
So it's very similar to the Pox deck. Is it like, do you have any idea of like what it does better or what it does worse than the
I'm
Pox
pretty
deck?
sure it's just worse than the Pox deck because
Okay.
Mind Slicer is super. It's just clunky and awkward, and God forbid they have Swords to Plowshares. That's pretty awkward. I know if you have therapy in your graveyard, you can do it first or whatever, but you don't like that's sure. If you have therapy and play Mind Slicer into a decent board, you're probably going to win, but like that's like kind of asking a lot.
Sure.
A lot of times you have to play Naked Mind Slicer and hope or Edict yourself next turn, or I've played versions that play Innocent Blood, you know, whatever, but Swords is real bad for it. Pox is just it just kind of is it's just a better Magic card, you know, like it's just slightly better.
All right, cool. Well, thanks guys for the match. Sorry that it didn't go a little longer, Anthony, but congratulations, Mano.
Thanks.
All right, we will see you guys next week then.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it as usual.
Yep.
Take
Have
care.
a good night.
Later.
All right, let's jump over. Let's talk about the remaining 2 players. So we went through Andy and Phil. So here we have Anthony. He built his decks he said he tried brewing on a budget and showcasing interesting engines and card interactions. And I think like Dig Site is like a pretty, sums that up pretty well. Like it's definitely an engine and it's very interesting. It has interactions with the Soul Debbie Digger and whatnot. And is definitely really interesting. And I kind of do like the idea of like, I mean, it's just a personal thing, but like building on a budget is kind of cool every now and then because it's really personal. Because I mean, not only like is everyone's budget different, but like if you own certain expensive cards, then like your brewing on a budget might be different than someone else's because you have access to certain cards. So it's kind of different, just a different element to deck building when you are only restricting yourself to like a certain monetary value. I think is pretty interesting. We asked him if he only got to keep 1 card, he would keep his 4th edition Colossus of Sardia, which is the first rare I ever pulled.
Nice.
I would say that if that wasn't like something important, that would be an odd choice. That card's I know. I guess when I was little, it was pretty impressive. A 9-mana 9/9 trampler was pretty exciting. But,
yeah, it works pretty cool too.
They're pretty imposing, that guy there. We didn't even have Voltaic Keys or Tinkers or anything. We just, I guess, expected to cast it. But yeah, the kitchen table Magic days are done for me. So, Pirates or Ninjas? He goes with Ninjas. I think.
All right.
He might be the first one who said Ninjas.
I think he's the second.
Okay, maybe someone else said. Okay. His favorite video game is also Super Smash Bros. Melee. So maybe we should have asked him what characters he liked.
Oh yeah.
But the answer is probably just, I feel like Fox. I don't know. The one thing I appreciate Melee, obviously, because it's kind of, I mean, it's still played competitively today because it's just the most balanced of any of the Super Smash Bros. And that's I think why it holds probably a lot of like people so much. And we asked him how long can you hold your breath underwater, and he chimed in before our match. He said he held he not underwater, he just held his breath, but he originally said 60 seconds, but he was able to hold his breath for 70 seconds before the match. So we updated it. So
excellent.
That one's
strong work, Anthony.
Also, yeah, that puts him at the top of the list. I think 60. I think was the second highest. So Anthony's winning the holding the breath underwater.
If we're ever in a situation where we're all in the same city for a pre-modern tournament and we're at a hotel, we're actually going to have this competition at the pool. Right. Like I'm calling it now. Okay. Summer pre-modern tournament, swimming pool, actual competition.
All right. You have to come up with some award, either some card with a altered card that has to do with underwater breathing or something. But
We'll pull a card and have everybody sign it or write something on it.
sure.
And the person who wins gets the card.
All right. And we'll move on. We'll close it out with Brian's card. How did you pick your 3 decks? So combination on stuff on his back burner, stuff he was working on, and then he also asked Jeff Liu for some tech. He mostly picked decks that he doesn't think that he could compete in the monthly. He feels that they're just not quite consistent enough or powerful enough, and he feels like he would go anywhere in between, like he says 1.5 to 4.5 wins. But yeah, so he'd rather be a little bit more competitive. So he feels like had a little bit more room to breathe in the Premodern Showdown series and could flex his creative muscles. So good opportunity there. I know Brian tends to have a lot of mana stack decks of just different versions. He'll brew a deck and he'll write it down in his mana stacks, and then he has a bunch of saved decks there. So pretty cool. If you only get to keep 1 magic card, he would keep Alpha Lotus. So that one, I guess, makes sense. I guess like the delta of like you owning, like the difference between like losing a $400 magic card and then like a multi-$1,000 magic card, I guess, is a big difference. So yeah, I guess pick the valuable one. That makes sense. He also likes ninjas, so he'll
That's 3.
he can sneak around with Anthony and Gabe. So his favorite video game is Breath of the Wild, and he said, although maybe Slay the Spire, because on his podcast when he was just talking to Zvi not too long ago, they talked about Slay the Spire a lot, and he was I think potentially say that Slay the Spire was his favorite game. Period. I think he said. I think he said that was above Magic, or maybe best design game. I don't know what the caveat was. I can't remember exactly. So, but they were talking about Slay the Spire on one of his podcasts. So, have you played Slay the Spire?
I haven't. No.
Okay, I haven't played it either. I mean, I know what it is. It's like a deck building dungeon crawler kind of thing, and I've heard only positive things about it, but I haven't played it yet. And he says he can hold his breath underwater for 32 seconds. So that's a precise measurement, but my guess is he didn't actually test it like Anthony did.
It's my guess as well.
But I guess he's above the people that said 30, so he's got him there. Okay, I will jump over our schedule. We'll look forward to see what we have on Monday. So Monday is our 7th week of play. So that is the last week of the round robin portion. And after that, we will have a top 4 in week 8. We'll have semifinal matches on Monday and then finals match on the Wednesday. So we're pulling into the home stretch for the Premodern Showdown Series 2. But so we have Anthony is playing Gabe on Monday, and then Sean is playing Brian. And I'm going to go over to the standings. So this is standings at the beginning of this week. So this was prior to any of these matches. So Aaron had lost to Gabe. So Aaron is 4-2 as well as Gabe. Andy beat Phil. So Andy is 5-1. And Phil is 1-5. And then Robin also won. He beat Sean. So Robin's 5-1 and Sean's 0-6. So we have Robin and Andy at 5-1. Yep. We have Aaron and Gabe at 4-2.
Yep.
And then we have Brian at 3-2. So I think maybe there's a shot that Brian can make it. I'll have to check.
I think both Gabe and Aaron beat Brian.
Okay.
So even if they lose and Brian wins, I think he loses on head-to-head.
Okay. I don't know if there's. Okay, so well, I'll have to check. I'll have a graphic for the next week to see if there's a possibility, but we might have a lock top 4. But still, I guess for Aaron, I mean, positioning, it could be like the seeding does matter. You get to choose to play or draw. So like the X and ones will want to fight and get an extra victory. And so even if the top 4 is set, there's still something to play for these players. So it'll be pretty interesting. I guess that pretty much wraps things up. I'll just put another reminder Sign up for the Spring Fling if you want to play and haven't already. I will be closing the registration tomorrow at noon Eastern, so there's not a lot of time left to register. That will be starting on Friday. We'll have matches up, so it is coming up real soon. I want to thank everyone who was able to tune in. Thanks for people for chatting. Thanks for people for subscriptions, for follows. Thanks for all the support you guys have. We're having a bunch of fun. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. And that's all I can say. I'm looking forward to next week and looking forward to kind of getting our top 4 set. Do you have anything else to add, Flint?
I do not. Thanks for watching, everybody.
All right. So until next time, guys, take care.
Night, everybody.